Never gets anything right. One time I was recording Nigel and it gave him a curse word or something like that when he didn't say anything close to it. It was weird. Can't share that one. But so for the updates, we'll go through the working groups, starting with the policy side. Adam, if you have anything to it, I know we need to get the voting going here soon. I did, just for an update for you, I did align things with Karen. She actually likes your PR design. So we could actually do that staggered format and fill the 3 empty seats we have right now, and then align our process. I think they're trying to do the elections for the other committees at the AMM. So we can do the next 3 seats at that point in time, which is roughly 3 months away.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. And then I've been trying to organize. I don't know if it's a matter of just Discord being atrocious or what. Um, but yeah, I can't even find those little like working group sub category channels that we had, and let alone like nobody's getting notifications on them. So I haven't been able to coordinate because I think Marcin was out. Nick was also supposed to be in there, but I don't even think he's in the Discord, or if he is, I don't know his Discord name. So I haven't been able to coordinate our actual policy working group individuals at all, only because that Discord's making it impossible to like actually get everybody in a room and find out like, hey, when can we meet? So yeah, it's the Discord. People are under random weird names that they used for gaming 30 years ago or something. Like there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and you can set per server aliases for yourself, just so you're aware, guys. But it's definitely something that we have to look at because yeah, it's been really hard to coordinate in terms of policy. But I mean, if Karen likes kind of what I had already proposed, we can just kind of start moving in that direction. I think the biggest thing is where I don't know if they're going to continue using Summon or not. I don't know if that decision's been made in terms of who the vendor for actually hosting and organizing the voting itself actually is. And ensuring that only members can vote. I think that's our big outstanding issue right now. So,
yeah, which there is a push on the member piece for everyone to renew, on the committee to be doing that individual paid thing. They're working out the enterprise level right now with the MCC, so that way company affiliations cover that membership piece. And I don't know when that fully goes live, but they're giving, I think it's to the end of August for everyone to get their membership re-registered. Because if you're an associate, then you can't participate in the committee. So there is enforcement coming on that. I'll figure out where the enterprise comes in, but I know everyone on here is covered for the most part.
Yeah. So anyway, morning, Tex.
Yeah, he's supposed to be on holiday.
Yeah. So I mean, that's really the update is where we're at. You know, like we just I need a better way to organize and coordinate with people that are on the working group, so that way we can make a group decision rather than just me unilaterally pushing out what I think is best, sort of thing. So.
Okay. I'm wondering if we revert one of the things that they're moving forward with, which is they're trying to, all the committees are actually going to go live, I think, next week, according to Karen, with their different Discord handles. And the way we're doing the working groups is OSC working groups is the catch-all, and then it's like a thread
right
where all the different working groups are listed. Not a lot of people actually interact there, so I don't know if we pull it back out to the higher level. That's a discussion point. But
I think that's the thing. Like I'm not seeing like unread messages, like unless in which that any of them have like unread messages
yeah,
or anything.
you have
So
to intentionally be looking for it.
Right. So yeah, if anything that requires us to go looking to see if somebody's trying to get a hold of us is probably not a good communication method when, you know, especially if there's something time sensitive that we need to do. So
Okay. What I can do too is also list our open source committee members' Discord handles and have that pinned to the chat, so it's easy reference point if we need to get someone particular.
yeah, that could work too.
But I like the way the project repo working groups are set up because they're easy to get a hold of versus the way we have ours. So that'd be something to change. I'll take that back.
Okay.
The next one is I had project incubation. Alex or Salona, if y'all wanted to do anything for our conversation yesterday.
Well, I think Alex has been working on it more than I have, unfortunately, because I've been in meetings all day for this past week. But we did have a good discussion about the metrics portion. And so that's going to be my next pass that I take on that, is looking at the different ones on that. Where can we start to actually add in deliverables or benchmarks or something along those lines for the different pieces? Like, what are those qualifications going to be at each step that we need to come up with? And so I haven't gone over that yet, but I know that the structure is there because I read that over with y'all yesterday. And I think it's just basically one of those things where maybe, I don't know, what are y'all thinking? I'm thinking like maybe I put in a couple of suggestions as to what they are and what I would set them at. And then we can have that as a point of discussion. Because the thing is like, I don't feel like there is a correct answer, right? I feel like it's something that we all have to talk about and navigate and negotiate. And so maybe if I go through that and just like maybe add commentary on here, think about this kind of deliverable here, think about this one here, think about this one, would that be something? And then maybe as a group, we could go through it and like, throw hands up and figure out if that works, or what are y'all thinking in regards to a process for this?
I think so. I did do a YouTube video recording today that I pushed out to kind of a basic overview of what the
Okay.
intent is, and then we
Mhm.
could actually transfer it to a Discord meeting and actually try to get some community plug-in. And I'll ping a couple people to come join that conversation, because I think going through those points and having more representation viewpoints will help us get to something more concrete to test it.
Yeah, yeah. It was just one of those things where it's like once I start throwing all that on there, I know that everyone's going to want to discuss it, right? And I don't want to just sit there and like edit it. Do you know what I mean? I want to put in. That always makes me feel sort of uncomfortable on things that I feel should be discussed. So I think maybe if I just go in and insert a bunch of comments that way, and that way, maybe I'll figure out some particular emoji for it as to, this should be voted on or something along those lines. And then everybody knows, oh, okay, that's what this means.
Well, feel free to put my or Tex's name and make it our suggestions that are controversial if you want.
Nah, it's fine.
I define
I've already got my reputation as difficult going. So, there's that. Oh, it was so funny. So this is the UN thing. Evidently there's some people going around calling me the crypto girl. And I'm just sitting there going, what? I'm like,
new labels.
it was so weird because I'm not crypto. I'm like, well, yes, I'm working with a crypto group and we're doing this, but I'm like, I have nothing to do with the crypto technology, guys. I'm just doing open source and, and trying to figure out the community management aspects of this and sustainability. I'm like, I don't know what the hell this has to do with crypto, but okay. It was very strange to me to get labeled like that, where I'm just like, that shows
Well,
how little you know if you think that I'm that. Like, I am very, very humbled by the fact of how much I do not know. It's like, yes, okay, I did my own DLTs and blockchains way back in the day before they had a name. I'm like, but that does not mean I understand the current state of, cryptocurrency. I'm like,
well,
whatever.
Uh,
we'll tie in your crypto grow experience in the incubation.
There you go.
just a couple of
Okay.
comments.
So if everyone's in agreement, then we'll start taking our Thursday meeting, making it apparent on the Discord, allow anyone to join. And if we can get your suggestions in there before the next Thursday, Solana, I think that would serve good.
Yeah, it'll be a bit tight considering I have like a ton of stuff to do this weekend because I've got to get all the
Okay.
stuff ready for Charles, and then I've got to get, my reporting into him that Lloyd's doing, and then I've got to get all the talking points stuff done for the core. So that will be my third thing.
Okay.
All right.
Any other thoughts towards that before I move on to the next item?
Yeah, I have a comment.
yeah.
Like, first of all,
Sorry,
welcome to
I forgot.
Barcelona. When I go to meetups, I start with this. I'm a crypto bro. But then in terms of acceptance criteria and this sort of things, what I personally struggle with formulating is the border between the process and the criteria. So in some sense, it's more efficient to have a panel of subject matter experts which decide, okay, let's move this project from this stage to that stage. But on the other hand, this process is very inefficient, and we would like to automate and do as much as we can as a criteria. You know, it's something that there's no decision, but it's like automated, or at least if there is a panel, they have a transparent way of things that's saying. And then where is this actually border, and what are the things that we sort of trust people to discuss and come to agreement to, and if if it's acceptable at all, and do we have a process, or do we try to avoid process and just focus on programmatically doing this?
Yeah, it's going to be a combination of the both.
Mm. So where is the, you know, where do we put
the X and the Y.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we get the community input, that'll help us streamline it.
That's awesome.
And I might bring in Jörg too from Bitergia, just as some more guidance towards metrics on that. And that's a link to the meeting minutes that we've been discussing. So update.
Are you talking about Georg?
Yeah, Jörg.
Yeah. He was at the UN thing.
Yeah, I saw his post. He's been going crazy, so that's how I knew a lot was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I will moving to the security policy. So we are getting the instrumental pieces in place. We have an internal server with the Security Council. We've had the governing board came in and met with Intersect, so I'm going to give them a rundown on the policy, even though it's committee approved, and just get any red flags from there and start tying things in. We really are trying to replicate just in that MBO decentralized factor, how the DDoS thing was handled on the IOG side, tying in relevant parties, making sure there's incident reports and stuff like that. So we should have that set up, and then security MD templates given to all the projects. So that way there's a template to follow, essentially, for reporting those things.
Christian, can you make sure that that the core knows that this is being worked on, because it seems like they were trying to do more of that, and I was trying to sit there and say, no, this is happening over here. So you might want to make sure that that's known.
Yeah, I'll get the I'll make sure it happens. Because I'm actually got to set up an appointment with Jer to make sure I'm not missing anything from current process that should be in there. Make sure we're aligned there, and then start implementing really fast. But that's mainly the update from that. The other piece moving into, let me get back to was Oracle Working Group. Tex, I don't know if you have an update on that, if you can speak to it.
Yes, Oracle's working group has moved to meet bi-weekly. There's lots of discussions going on over there, and so trying to help them stay in line of let's determine what we actually want to do, or what do they want to do, right? Really just help them narrow that down. There's not a definitive update as of yet. It's just that there's a lot of general discussion. I'll let Salona jump in on this. Yeah. Her and I have the same wavelength. We were both in that meeting, so anything else she has to add, I don't have a problem with.
Yeah, no, on that, one of the things I was seeing, and this was actually a question I had to you too, Tex, because I wasn't at the meetings before, right? So I don't have as much contextual information. And it does sound like they're really wanting to run this like how you would run a standards committee, where you have a lot more formal process and you do all that, because of the fact that they do want to get to a small S standard that could possibly become a big S standard on some of this. And nothing at Intersect has been, run that formally, right? And so it will be a little bit of a jump for them to do that. And not only that, but I'm not this is one of the reasons why earlier I was advocating that you should let the groups figure out their own governance, because they'll have, different environments to do stuff in, and everyone is very afraid of this being of this getting contentious quickly. And that's what I saw from it, is that everyone's like, oh, we want to do this, but we're worried about these things. And so when I brought up a lot of the typical standards process, like an abbreviate Robert's rules and things of this nature, and doing some of these other different pieces, they really seemed to glom over to that, which surprised me, because normally I have to force everyone to do these things. And for a group to be like, yes, please, 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 can we get all these things in process so that we can have these discussions and we won't get in trouble? I was just like, oh, I'm not used to that. Normally I'm the big meanie. So I thought that was interesting. I do want to make sure, text, that that's all of them, because it was such a small group that I got to meet. That if we can make sure that everyone is in a similar place, I think that would be really important for this group, is, them basically at first figuring out how they really do want to communicate with each other on this, because they are afraid of it being contentious quickly.
Yeah, so realistically, I plan for next week's meeting to be, one more idea session. I'm not in charge of running it at all. It's entirely them, right?
Yeah.
So if they have a different agenda they need to talk about, then they do that. But for me, as oversight, it's one last idea session to say, hey, okay, you said you wanted these things. We're getting them set up. Tell us anything else that you want that you need to work, and then we go from there. And the next meeting that they have, it'd be that final agreement where it's like, here's the first 5 minutes. This is everything we talked about. People have had multiple weeks to get in here, including async, which should be after this next meeting. They'll have a Discord channel and stuff, or they have a Discord channel, but they'll have more open communication. So, sorry, not this next meeting, the idea session, the meeting after that, the first 5 minutes saying, okay, everyone said they want this. This is all that's been set up. Do we all agree? And do we all agree with these rules? Great. Move on. Do your work.
Yeah. And I think that this is like really powerful, right? And I do kind of view this from my meta perspective in regards to it, where I feel like Cardano needs something like this. They need a place where people can come together and discuss interoperability and do those kinds of things going forward. And so creating a pattern like this, I think, could be really useful, because I'm assuming there's going to be more of these that happen, as the Cardano community realizes that they need to coordinate on some of these different things, right? And so having something like this, I think, is actually very valuable, but it is a bit scary.
Yeah, we haven't had much coordination on it, so I guess this kind of serves as our first Intersect-led initiative towards it, at least.
Yeah. Do you know if this is just like completely? Do you know if anybody, if anything of this is going to want to pursue something like ISO in the future, or, something along those lines? Because it seems like in the Web3 space, something like that could be very valuable, right? It's like when we, at Hyperledger, when I asked them to break Aries off of Indy for the DIDs, that's what like accelerated the entire DID process to a whole nother level, because then suddenly everyone realized, oh, you can abstract this off of the blockchain, and here's all the different stuff that you can do, and this is how we should be doing this. Do you feel like there might be something here in regards to that to help with us and our recognition and things of that nature that we could use?
It might be. I mean, I know there was something done for what NFTs were supposed to be, or outputs for that in some SIP. I think that's what Charles's desire is for the oracles piece.
Okay.
But there might be something to extract to that level.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I know there's some parties that weren't in attendance last week, and I'm making them come over because it's a big political piece, because everyone thinks everyone's trying to steal their product, and it's like that's not the case. So
yeah, well, we might have to. Well, that might, if it's an IP issue that everyone is also tense about, then we have to go away to actually how open standards instead of open source. Because if it is an IP issue, then people aren't going to like the Apache 2 portion, and then life is going to get even more conflicted. So, I'll have to talk with them. I guess next week we'll talk with them about it and see.
yeah, I think
But
they're more on standards, because one particular Oracle doesn't want to do open source, so standards might be more applicable.
gotcha. Yeah.
I have
so-
one
I don't
question
want to
on
speak
that.
out of turn. Oh, go ahead.
Cindy?
Yeah. One question on that. The interoperability piece, is it only within Cardano, or the thought is outside of it is a common blockchain thing?
Well, Cindy, one of the things that I find is that like when a group like takes an initiative to do something that's architecturally the sound thing to do, like with Aries
Mhm.
breaking that, breaking off the thing. It was when we did it, it was only about Hyperledger Indy, right? And it was about some things that I
Mhm.
needed to help facilitate some other contracts that I wanted to have. And they were very willing to do it. But then once we did it, it like reverberated. And there was another standards group that has been working on it for forever at the W3C that were doing a ton of DID work. But it also ended up spawning up a whole bunch of other DID organizations. In fact, 2 that ended up coming back and joining the Linux Foundation. Because it all just got all reinvigorated, and then a bunch of stuff moved through. And so what I was talking on that is I was thinking more strategically in regards to this. Like if we go and we do something that's really cool in Cardano, that we're like, oh, this is really cool. And oh, by the way, it applies to a bunch of other Web3. Let's now take it over to like the W3C or IETF or ISO. Then all the other W3 people come involved, and then it's not just Cardano. I don't think we should, but it's just kind of funny how it can move that way. And so that's what I was just saying is like strategically, that could be something cool to do.
Yeah,
But
I fully agree. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. I like the idea of doing that. Um,
Yeah.
Any other questions towards the oracles piece? Okay. Next we had DevX, but I can talk to that too, Alex, if you have any comments. But essentially, DevX working group's been on standby until we get the developer advocate program up, which I'm hoping to have candidates up and running as early as next week. Am I having network issues?
No, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, in the developer advocates, we should at least have 2 starting next week, and then the whole program to be up and running by end of July. And I want to tie in the DevX work piece. Alex did a lot of work with that group early on, and then bring them in and start influencing different pain points and how the OSC can start tailoring policy to address these issues, as well as what a contribution ladder, certifications, and things look like with that. And I'll let you add any commentary, Alex.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I got surprised that DevX is on the agenda, so I pulled up all of the documents that we had since the group started working, and that's quite a bit of things to work on policy here at the Open Source Committee. So yeah, I hope to be able to say something about direction once we have the developer advocates. I do think primarily we could leverage Catalyst, and and this ties to incubation, right? If we have, for example, acceptance criteria such as, for example, potential, right? So do we see this project as potentially impacting Cardano very strongly? We could provide additional support if it's through Catalyst, and we could find such projects in Catalyst. But this is, just throwing ideas out there. And there are quite a few other ideas of, I'm pretty happy with what happens, because one of the primary problems that was highlighted by the developer ecosystem survey from Cardano Foundation is scattered documentation. And this, although we cannot really tackle directly at the moment, other things I see being addressed. For example, people complain that it's hard to get started, and now we have developer advocate program that will help people get started. And then also, I like very much that the definition of a developer is changing here, because when we pointed out in the developer experience working group that our definition of developer is a bit narrow, and what we mean by developer is a core Cardano maintainer. And now the core repository maintainer has its own definition, and the developer is more wide, and we can assume that the developer is someone who wants to build actually end user of Cardano, so startup developer, social entrepreneur, or impact entrepreneur, so someone who wants to build on Cardano but has no experience with the technology and is not really interested in improving the technology itself, but wants to use it for their own purposes. And so I hope we can, with the developer experience working group and developer advocates, sort of balance these two categories of developers and work to help them both. And primarily, I think the second, so the entrepreneurs, because like we want more adoption, right? And that's what we are pointing out since like a couple of years ago. So more adoption, more people should be able. There's an interesting metric which we don't know how to measure, but probably we can in the future. It's called time to being productive. So if you take a developer and take their level of experience, and then you have to define what is productive. You know, it could be a commit to a core repository, or it could be they have MVP for the idea, you know, in Catalyst. And from the discussion that I just read in the documents we were discussing like several months ago, currently at least 2 weeks, or like there's quite a big time investment for the Plot Pioneer program. It's fairly long. And then now things are getting more simple, and we hope that maybe someone who can call themselves full stack developer will be able to build a DApp component in a couple of weeks, or like at least we can measure success like this. But like the particular, you know, criteria are still to be discussed.
I think there's also a lot of other problems, not just scattered documentation, but there's also scattered tooling, tooling not known, not available.
Well, in general,
other than that, also I see in Catalyst a lot of same proposals on creating the same tooling.
Yeah.
So
yeah, unfortunately. Well, there's a suggestion from people like which is running, and we don't do this. So there is Cardano developer portal, which is supposed to address exactly what you're saying. So it has to be the center point of like different documentation pieces and different popular tools that people are supposed to use. And it has to be like, you know, the user journey on Cardano is supposed to be that people step through Cardano developer portal, and so maybe interacting with the marketing working group and promoting and maintaining the developer portal would be like really helpful to address what you are. But about Catalyst, yeah, that's really difficult. You know, it's like people, you can't stop people from proposing different things, and then Catalyst is chaotic, and you know, stuff gets funded. I think what we can do is we can really pick up the projects which are, we think, the best. So it's a really tool that is really useful, and there's quite a few tools like this. We could probably put, if we find these people, we could put them in a working group or ask them to come. If they come, they would have a say in what is going on. If they refuse to come, that's sort of their choice.
I think there should also be some kind of a filter. So if people are proposing some tooling that is already there, why have that as a proposal up in Catalyst? Because that's confusing the community, because the community doesn't know what all kinds of tooling are there. So they start voting on it because they think it's important to have that tooling.
It's an interesting problem. It would be like if someone would be active on Catalyst and commenting, like someone who knows really the tooling that exists, and that's already a challenge, you know, like how do you know all the things that are in Cardano? And they would be commenting to the people who are proposing, like putting comments like, yeah, but here is this already built. And the biggest challenge here is to know the tools that exist, and yeah, that's interesting challenge.
And to your point, Ronald, too, the idea is to actually build an open source library for entrepreneurial minds too that connect all this piece. And we can also highlight where some of these redundant areas are and the pros and cons and differences. Like smart contract languages is probably the big category for Cardano because there's a million of them, and each person just wants to make a simpler one for their specific use case. But I would go in where we say this is the best, our guidelines of what to use per se, but not necessarily enforcing one over the other. I don't know, but hopefully something like that would also reduce redundancy before people just keep trying to reinvent stuff, as Adam was putting it, the not invented here syndrome.
Maybe once, you know, the critical mass accumulates of similar projects, people who come to ecosystem with new ideas, they will find them early enough so that they already know, you know, like, yeah, okay, this exists.
Yeah.
Sounds
Any
like
other
we might
questions?
need something like a landscape or ecosystem mapping tool.
And it has to be done regularly, right? Because
Yeah.
like this stuff gets data.
Sorry, I'm pretty sure that my Catalyst project is not going to get approved. So I'm just going to be around being, snarky.
Well, if budgets get renewed, Solona, maybe here soon. But it's something we need because I also need. You don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of what we don't know that exists out there, and so
I tried to go through the Catalyst stuff and I was just like, I feel so stupid. I'm sorry. I think of myself as smart. I did Kickstarters. I was part of an extremely successful Kickstarter. It's like da 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 da. And I went through the Catalyst stuff and I'm like, oh, I don't even know how to tackle that because it's just so immense. And I don't understand enough to be like, I just really felt stupid. I'll just, be honest with you. I just really felt stupid. So
If you go to town hall, Catalyst town hall, in the beginning, they chant, like Cardano is a cult. In the beginning, people chant, things may break, things may be confusing, documentation may be missing, and some other stuff,
I mean, it was inspiring seeing all this cool stuff because people are like, oh, well, we're thinking about this and this and this and this and this. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, but I was just like, I was like, I don't have enough time to map everything out so that I feel like I can make a bunch of decisions. And so we just voted for people that we liked. Like, that's what happens is you just go and you look for people's names of who seems to be competent and you vote for them and not their projects. And I'm like, I couldn't figure out another way of tackling it quickly, which is unfortunate.
yeah, we're finding a process to be done.
Yeah. So I'm that person. I'm the bad person.
All in favor to kick Solona? Say aye.
Whatever. I liked all of y'all's stuff. So
Hey.
I think that's what we see in Catalyst. People know for the projects that they know and for the people that they know. And this is actually highlights a problem that I try to, bring to people's attention here in Cardano. And this is actually number 3 in the last ecosystem survey. It's hard to get started. If you're new, chances that your project will be funded by Catalyst are fairly low. And people, to the extent that they realize this, they defer from submitting proposals, because even writing a proposal and planning something that to implement, it like reflects back to what you said, Solon, about RFP. And so currently, just flat ROI on the Catalyst is 1 in 3. So you had like 1 in 3 chance to get funded. But I suggested Danny to do the same statistic for, like what is the probability to get funded if you are less than 3 years in ecosystem, and I'm pretty sure it's like 1 in 10.
I'm curious if we do put a working group, like once the dev apps get here, so we have more bandwidth to focus towards that, but do a working group on building the open source libraries. Like I know TX Pipe has a really good, like their GitHub straightforward as to what's listed on there. And we can start pulling in examples like that and start with the basics and then map it out bigger. But at least that way, at least somewhere on the Intersect open source side, there's a list of basic projects and we can start highlighting redundancies, at least make an effort for it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if we marketed forming a working group on that, we'd get some participation because it's free marketing for projects, quote unquote.
Well, and maybe we could market outside of our membership too. And that would help a lot with the membership pieces, right? Because I know that there's a lot of groups who feel a bit disillusioned, and then we could bring them in that way too.
Yeah. I mean, open source library is not limited to our membership.
Yeah.
Tex?
Yeah, that's exactly along the lines of what I was thinking. If we get an opportunity to, if we can just come up with a prompt and we can just push that out to the community at large, right? Not focused on just a membership. I really want to see, although I don't have as much direct involvement right at the moment, I really want to see people come to Intersect, become a member, come to committee meetings, various committee meetings, right? Where they would in turn be directed to OSC, and they essentially come up with that group idea. as much as committees, we can say, hey, we need a working group for this. Really want to push that we get that from the community, because that is going to further demonstrate where we're getting the open source. So if we can think of a couple of different prompts or put it out that way, then there's somebody, it'd be easier to catch that person and let them continue to build their idea than just saying, oh, it's our idea. Do you want to work on it for us? And we'll call it from the community. Somebody might catch on to that at some point.
I don't necessarily think it'd be a loss, but yeah, we definitely need to get that latter integrated in the future. Is anyone interested in standing up the open source library piece?
Maybe interested to listing that out.
I don't have bandwidth at the moment, Christian, but you know that I do care about that. So it might be something that I come up with in a few weeks. But I've got all these deadlines because of the hard fork. So I've got to get it.
I'm just wanting to get committee consensus if it's something we focus on. It seems like everyone cares about it, and then we can just do regular updates like our other working groups. I mean, I'll put my energy to it as I have bandwidth as well.
Sounds good. I can also contribute.
Okay. Well, I will get that formalized then. So now that we've gone through that, the next one is General Open Source Office. We are doing our project support services, which are going live, trying to build a supplier list. So this will end up coming back to that open source library piece, but there's general support services we're going to start rolling out to the community and building a demand for. That way I can figure out the associated budgets to deliver stuff. I did do a YouTube recording on it, so that'll cover the basics of it, but just so everyone can see it, we're trying to hit these 8 categories. If projects need marketing, there's going to be tiered pieces where there's the community services. There will be some free things there, and then some things you can pay for it if you go to a supplier that we don't have the bandwidth to handle and or it's more complicated. Then you have the pro, there's more Intersect membership free services, and then for those paid services that would be from the community side, you get some discount, i.e. something we negotiate on y'all's behalf. And then there's the direct paid stuff that goes directly with somebody else. But I'm trying to figure out how we service these on those different levels, depending on how the complexity for each one or what the request is. But trying to hit marketing, community building, governance, open source strategy, sustainability, design and training. The product management and the legal, I'm still scoping out because we don't have direct resources there. So I have to partner with the other teams on that. But we're for sure trying to launch this and figure out how we scale it, make it sustainable. Yeah. Product committee would be interesting.
Yeah, that's so the things that I'm trying to keep suggesting to the community is it would be really good to have either a marketing steering committee or a product committee or a product group that goes under the marketing steering committee or something along those lines, because we're going to need that for the next phases of 1694. We're going to need to be able to do these things for the community. So it would be good to have a place, because that way then we can go out and actually recruit marketing and design and productization people to join Intersect and join Cardano. When you sit there and you have a place like that for them. And of course, then also there's people who are doing this in everyone's businesses too. And now they would have a place to come and participate more too. So it's my new nail that I'm hammering there, Christian. You know how I pick things where I go after them for a while. This is the new one.
Yeah, at least I know for 2024, they're sitting with the 7 basic committees, and roadmap and budget tie into product management a little bit. But I'm thinking if we need to make it in earlier, we could probably get a subcommittee devoted straight to that and roll them in under those particular committees. Tex and then Alex.
Yeah, so I'm going to say, without saying terribly too much, that is the eventual next steps is a marketing committee. essentially replaces parameters when we get our subcommittee status or subcommittee tier established. But everything that I've heard and looked at as far as the build is that is very end of the year, post AMM, maybe even next year. So that is in the works. That is the next steps. I just want to put everyone leaves that way. It's just not publicly marketed aside from, hey, we discussed it here, but I don't have any more to share on it. It's just, yes, that is the cap.
Alex?
Yeah, I want to just reply to Silona because just today I was in a meeting for a marketing special interest group, which does something along the lines of what she's suggesting for the committee. And at the present moment, they're discussing actually accounting and how to budget. But this, I think, ties to prioritization of which category of marketing do we prefer to fund in the future. What I'm suggesting to them is to, like, coming back to the question I asked in the beginning of the meeting, what are user categories for Cardano? Who are our, yeah, so who we market to? So just that some work is being done.
Cool. Well, next thing I have is our open source pilot and the results. Adam, I don't know if you want to talk about your experience as a maintainer, and then I'll use the last 10 minutes to go through the pilot report.
Sure. Yeah, the maintainer process was not too bad. It took a little bit for us to get all the stakeholders on that particular repo into a same group and starting to have communications, but that's only because we had IOG employees, CF employees, Intersect employees, and then me. So everybody, we had a lot of different stakeholders involved, but we've been able to actually start making progress on that repo, whereas it had been stalled out for basically even before it came over to Intersect, there had been really no work being done or development on it, and we've actually started to make progress towards closing out issues and getting it ready so that we'll have Cardano wallet and Cardano addresses ready for the Cheng hard fork. So overall, the process was good, but definitely rocky, and there's still room for improvement, like anything else we do. But yeah, overall, it wasn't too terribly bad.
Cool. I know I already gave my assessment on how it went back to the TSC. And I'm actually, me and Selena are going to work on breaking out the maintainer context, or musts, shoulds, and whats, don'ts, something similar to that, based off our trial program. But I'm taking the program and actually expanding it to try and get the other wallet repos that we have for the Adrestria piece and try and get maintainers associated with that partner with CF. And then I do have a proposal going in for Annotatus and Node Emulator. And then I'm going to start hitting the other core projects as well. So that way we keep in line with our strategy by Q4. Musts, shoulds, coulds. Yeah, there we go. But so more to come on that. I'll let everyone know how that works out, because that'll turn into our maintainer retainer contracts and working that sustainability model to our projects. The other piece, so this is on our Git book. Let me know if this zoomed in enough. But I'm calling it the true open source maturity model, because with where Cardano is, we have to assess it this way. I tried other practices and we didn't have the best, it wasn't contextual enough for us, or we weren't mature enough to succeed at those. But the results of this kind of show the impact that we've had, open source committee and Intersect as a whole, on the core Cardano projects. And just to re-highlight, we were doing this assessment based off the new contributor use case, red flags that you'd come into, which is your limited contributor engagement, code contribution and efficiency, commercial channel and effectiveness, lack of diversity, basic things that you would expect to see in an open source environment. Keynotes is, we did expand the feedback, because Twig was already doing 2 on CLI and consensus, so we got their input. So we had 4 maintainers contribute back to this, and then Adam on Cardano addresses. And it's to highlight that there's no direct connection to the founding entities related to this assessment. And it was just to test our open sourceness. We passed, although barely. I think I put a letter grade associated percentages, and we were a 59.6, I think, rounded up. So we hit a D, but we passed all the categories because we had a 50% accessibility rate. And the way that that worked was each maintainer was asked a series of questions about their experience based on the 14 points. These questions were collated into a Google form, which goes to a Google sheet and then assesses the criteria. There were multiple questions associated to each one, and those collated into a tally. And the sum average of those had to pass 50% to do a pass-fail grade. And then after each was tallied, the overall summary would be given, or the pass rate. And then that pass rate evaluates into an overall percentage for the letter grade. And if we had multiple people on one repository, they were summed out to be one submission. So that's how we ended up getting the 60%. So that factors in our synthesists and our over happy maintainers. And this is kind of the overall results. Engagement, we highlighted really well, 75%. Code contribution, room for improvement overall. The decision-making process, given the governance policies in place, we had a 50%, but we kind of need to roll out that policy to the other repositories and get that going. Diversity and contributions wasn't an issue according to the maintainers interacting, because we do have a lot of diverse stakeholders involved. Communication channels need to be more effective. This ties into the holding the transparent working group meetings. We have 0 because there's nothing on bug bounty. We kind of need to get something started there. Documentation, some's good, some's bad. Recognition, this one surprised me. A lot of people feel recognized for the work that they're doing, even though we don't have rewards or recognition program per se. So it might be we just take what's currently going on and put it on paper and then refine that as we go over, just to be overachieving. And then the governance model for what we do have implemented, 75, so more room to improvement as we increase adoption there. Same thing with code review and contributions. I think the biggest thing on code review was the time to review. We need to increase that, and I think by us getting diversified maintainers and attributing that paid model to it, it'll increase that ratio as well. And then these were all the same. I personally think we need more education training available or onboarding new contributors. Roadmap's pretty collaborative according to most, and then feedback integration. So any general questions associated to that? I can go through a specific example of how we evaluated it too. So basically with the use cases, we have the general pass-fail. This one passed, but it's test the effectiveness of the onboarding process for new contributors, evaluate the clarity and accessibility of documentation, mentorship availability, and overall onboarding experience to boost contributor engagement. We then broke it down into a given when then, which is given a new contributor has just joined the project, when they go through the onboarding experience, they should find documentation clear, receive adequate mentorship, and have positive onboarding experience. And then we had the maintainers go through those questions. The pass-fail criteria is how would you rate your experience, 3 or higher? Was it clear and accessible? Yes, no's. And then like for the fail piece, it was like, how long did it take for the code submission to be merged? 10 days or less. We failed that because that wasn't met. And then how would you rate it, 3 or higher? We didn't necessarily make that. So there's lessons learned to be improved from here. But I'll go ahead and link that to the call. Any questions? I'm happy to say that if we get a 60%, we definitely have job security as a committee for the upcoming year. There's a lot of things to take away from it.
So the only thing that I'd point out, I put in chat, which is like Hyperledger, we actually kind of quit doing bug bounties because we found them to be useless. and that we end up getting like a ton of spam in regards to them because most people don't know actually how to do the core work on any of the blockchains. So the majority of the stuff that we got was just crap. And to be quite honest, the bug bounties, the amount that they offer was not the same as doing the security audits, right? And so for me to really get people to be useful, I have to pay them a lot of money, not $10,000. And so I just found the bug bounty. I think that that might not be true for some of the other stuff that y'all are doing, but anything in core, it's just
Well,
kind of, yeah.
I'm
I mean,
wondering
it's
if
just a place to report it, but yeah.
I'm wondering if we tailor it instead of bug bounty to maybe a contribution use case. Because I've seen how I think it's one of the Europe foundations does a code for us type thing, which is a project has a need, they need something built out, so they'll put a reward associated to a certain
Yeah.
PR to be drafted,
Yeah.
and maybe do it that way versus find a bug and fix it type thing.
Yeah, because just the specific bug bounty stuff, and to be quite honest with all the other stuff that we're doing, it's not as useful, I think, for as it has been in others. But yeah, we just quit doing it because it was just so much spam. It's just that's all it was. We had like a barely anything allocated to it, and every single thing that we got was just like useless. And it ended up being more of a time sink than it was actually worth.
Okay.
Security
I guess
audits.
we can evaluate how we roll that out.
Yeah. Just giving you a heads up that, like, yes, I know that it's a de facto thing that everybody says, but at the same time, and it's sad because like I loved it at first, when they first came out with it. I thought it was a great idea. And then when I ended up working on different ones, it was like, well, that actually isn't useful. Because the biggest problem is one, it's not enough money. And so when you do it like that, then it's always going to be people that are just playing the numbers.
I see. Okay. Well, if there's no questions to that, the other piece I wanted to report on was the original roadmap for the open source office. Q1, we got everything done. We've done the GitHub audit for policy alignment. We got the governance structure in place, open source strategy policies, reporting functions for delivery assurance, or how open source works with them and they still be distinct, and the testing criteria for the strategy, which turned into our open source pilots, and we've just concluded those. We do have the Bitergia reports, which have gone live, which if you all haven't seen it, the June report's out. I put it in the project update channel. We have May and June to compare to. And then I think we just need to actually, based on the insights from the pilot, I don't think there's much to change in the strategy at the moment. I think it builds off what the community sentiment was to my review of it. And then if we still hit those foundation pillars, then once we accomplish that, then we can tailor the strategy to the other things the community pointed out. And I think that builds off of what these pilot insights were. I mean, there's more direct things we could do related to code contribution maybe, and try to refine that a little bit better. And then we did define the project incubation process, and we're rolling that out. Q3, what I have slated is identifying the strategic collaboration opportunities, not just within Cardano, but abroad, how Intersect or Cardano can even interact more. And that builds into the project incubation piece, also working within the Cardano community to find out what other key pillars are out there that are not being supported that should be on some person's bandwidth to make sure they're sustained. And then building in the supplier list for the service catalog. That way there's actually an ROI for being a member of Intersect. And then trying to onboard those external projects as the community wants us to. And then trying to get the legal compliance, policy adoption, and updating documentation to reflect. Because right now we've been holding off being instigators of the policy hardcore just until the Chang hard fork was done, but we're basically there. So we're going to start pushing out governance, policy, security, and the incubation adoption. Is there anything is this roadmap okay for us for Q3, or would the committee like any changes to it? Cindy?
Looks good. The second point, identification of the opportunities. Is that a prerequisite for the third one, or dependency? The
Can you repeat?
process for the identification of the opportunities and onboarding of the external projects. The third point that you have mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're interconnected but separate. Like they do have overlap a little bit,
Mhm.
but the strategic opportunities is a broad category. Like one example was us joining Hyperledger, the Linux Foundation. There's a strategic opportunity to get more open source practice, be at the summits and things like that. So
Mhm.
we connected Intersect there. The other one is Baturja for the analytic reporting tool. I'm trying now to roll that out to all the project maintainers so they can actually see their project data and do enhancements. And that ties into the incubation piece, which is you have that acceptance criteria for how your project's classified. So now you know how to analyze it and move up the tiers and actually measure your success that way. And then the other opportunities are like if we need to get commercial adoption or onboarding developers, who are different people who can help us with that, and how can we officially partner with people, things like that. Different associations, community people. I just want to make sure Intersect is relevant and it's more than just core Cardano. That's kind of what the objective was for that.
Yeah. On the third point about some kind of quantification would be good, in my opinion. So there's the onboarding of the external projects, but yeah, as a goal or roadmap, would be good to have some kind of quantification, and maybe at least 5. I don't know, 4, 1.
Okay. I'll try and figure out what's realistic and update it.
Yeah.
I drafted in January, so I left it open, but I'll get some quantities on there for you.
Great.
And then I need to update the roadmap at the bottom anyway. We hit the dates on there. I think we were only late by a month on some of them. But yeah, that's thank you everybody for joining. If there's no other thoughts.
I have another question, Christian. Will there be some transparency related to private memberships and enterprise memberships for Intersect? Because that's currently not available on the website. How many people signed up for a membership? And I think that's important also, basically showing how Intersect is growing, yes or no?
It's needed on the website. It's been long overdue. It's on the roadmap. I'll sync and figure out when they're actually doing that. But yes, that is to be addressed. I agree with you. Currently, the only way I measure membership is seeing how many people are on Discord at the time, which is not efficient. But they did just integrate HubSpot to actually track membership. So I know the numbers are there somewhere. They just need a interoperability is the word of the day. So
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll make sure that gets raised. I can say it's an OSC request. Okay. If no other questions, thank you all for joining. And
Thank
I'll see you all offline. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Good day.